The Middle East and the world is on edge, waiting. When will Iran deliver the retaliation against Israel they've been telegraphing for days, promising revenge after a suspected Israeli assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh? This is what the former CIA director David Petraeus had to say about that.
It's an enormous blow to Iran's honor, if you will, that this very senior individual is in their country. It's a huge intelligence failure. But I don't think that Iran wants to get into a real direct back and forth war with Israel. Frankly, I don't think Israel wants to get in a real full-on war with Hezbollah or with Iran either.
Let's get the inside look now and take you deep behind the scenes with Israeli Knesset member Amit Halevi. He's a top-level official in Israel's parliament. I'm Negar Mojtahedi, and this is Eye for Iran. Amit Halevi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Negar. It's my honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Now, Amit, for days, Iran has been saying it will enact revenge on Israel for the killing of Ismail Haniyeh. Now, of course, he was one of the leaders of Hamas who was killed at a private residence in Tehran, either by a missile or an explosive. He was in Tehran for the inauguration of Iran's new president, Masoud Pezeshkian. Of course, Israel hasn't claimed responsibility, but every day we are hearing, the attack is imminent, it's going to happen Monday, it's going to happen in 48 hours, it's going to happen tomorrow. What's your assessment, given your position, on how and when Iran will attack?
I think the answer, you should ask another question, because it's not question of when Iran will attack. Iran is already attacking Israel for many years. Actually, all the enemies that we see around us, it's all, made by Iran. Never mind if it's the Sunnian in Gaza Strip, or it's in Hezbollah in Lebanon, or in Syria, or in Iraq, or in Yemen. All these proxies are all proxies of the same Ayatollah's regime. We are under attack of Iran for many years. They build the monsters around us, and we need to put on the table, on the international table, the real threat of the free world. This is the Ayatollah regime. It's not the Persian people. Many of the Persian people suffered from this regime a lot. So I think this is the issue, and we need to take this perspective when we discuss this the current days.
But in terms of this imminent attack that everyone is talking about, can you speak to that? That would be more of a different in nature, in the sense of a direct attack from Iran. We saw that on April 13th when Iran launched more than 300 missiles and drones directly on Israel's soil. So what do you make of that in terms of what were the headlines in the news about this direct attack from Iran? What do you make of that?
Look, the abilities of Iran, as you have just said, we saw them in April 14. I mean, they built their well-armed army in many aspects, in many dimensions. And I think this is very clear to everybody. I think the Iranian regime knows also that we are not only good in defense, like it was in April 14, we have some more abilities, and I think they know very well what can be, what could be the Israel response to if this attack will be, in a different scale, that we cannot allow this type of attack.
So you mentioned for a little bit retaliation. What would retaliation look like if there was that direct attack that you mentioned? What would retaliation look like?
I'm not a cabinet member of Israel. I'm a Knesset member, member of the Foreign Affairs and Security members. Israel has its own abilities. I don't suggest to the Iranian regime to try and to challenge too much our abilities. I think that what they have already did on our borders, in the northern border, in the southern border, was need yet our, to complete our response, in this war, We have many steps to do in order to have the real victory, what we need to do. So I don't want to relate now to our responses to Iran. I think that even you saw the guy in Lebanon that find himself in Lebanon, Fuad Shuhar, that was died according to our instructions in Lebanon. I think that every man, after what happened there in Lebanon, in Beirut, knows that if he goes to sleep and he is our enemy, he needs to think twice if he will wake up tomorrow morning, because Israel has its abilities. And I'm saying again, it's not a private, it's not a private debate, it's not a private battle, it's our battle. It's the free world battle against Iran. That's the way we need to think about it. That's the way we need to act about it.
So if you can't comment on potential retaliation now, can you comment on how Israel retaliated to the strikes on April 13th, which was the first attack from Iran in terms of it being on Israeli soil directly?
From the defense point of view, I think everybody in the world saw that, we can defend ourselves. And of course, it was a cooperation with the United States and others, but Israel citizens were defense. But I think that defense is not enough. That's why the retaliation must include other elements. And I think there is a question of when and what. I don't want to get into it in this interview. I can't actually, but I can say that the target, and that should be on the table, on our table, the target must be taking off the Ayatollah current Iranian regime. That must be the target. It should be spoken. I mean, we need to speak.
So not going beyond nuclear sites, for example, is what you're saying, which is what we hear about often from.
I think the nuclear is not the major threat, because the nuclear weapon is only an umbrella that actually enabled Iran to get back to the classical threat of all its proxies armies over the Middle East. I mean, it gave them the status of nuclear state, and they can. It's like an umbrella to the regular forces that we see them. We see them daily basis in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq. I mean, they are building missiles, tanks. Air forces abilities, different air forces abilities, new one with the new technological tools. This is the real threat, not only about Israel, also about Jordan, that actually Iran is aimed to collapse the current regime in Jordan and to...
Tell us more about that. That often doesn't get spoken about in the news.
Look, Iran has actually a general program to destroy Israel. Yes, this is not new. They have in Tehran the Jerusalem Square with a watch that they say we will destroy Israel in specific year. I mean, they have a general program. Israel is only the first course. As I said, Europe and the United States are the next. And Jordan, as part of trying to make make a siege over Israel, they're actually trying for many years, and in the recent years, it's become, in a high level of attempts and activities in Jordan in order to undermine the Jordanian regime. And I remind you and your viewers that the Jordanian regime is actually, a minority in the Jordanian population. So there is a serious, dangerous potential that actually the Iranian will succeed to undermine this regime in some tribes in the southern side of Jordan and other places. They are choosing the right places in order to undermine the regime.
Do you think it could actually happen?
First of all, of course. The answer is of course. There is a serious potential of collapse of this regime, which is basically, as I said, is the Hashem family of the king of Jordan is a minority in his own population. Yes, not mention the Syrian refugees that came into it during the recent decades. So it's a problem. I mean, he's doing what he needs to do in order to survive, but this is a real potential of danger for Israel. But what I wanted to say that Iran is not playing. It has a strategic plan. It's not something that yesterday night somebody thought about, to attack Israel. This is a plan, and I'm telling you very seriously. And you saw the information that in the demonstrations in the United States, yes, the intelligence information from the U.S. forces, yes, U.S. intelligence forces, that the demonstrations in the protests in the United States that included burning the United States flag, something that, in different days cannot just be like that, but that was sponsored by Iranian regime. Yes, those demonstrations. So there is a strategic concept of the Iranian regime, how he takes how he takes over our area, how he influenced other cells and groups over the whole world in order to implement his vision. Again, his totalitarian, barbarian, and racist vision. Israel will not allow that Lebanon will stay terror state. Not allow. It will take us time. Yes, maybe we cannot do everything tomorrow morning, but the conclusion is very clear. Israel cannot allow itself terror state in Gaza. It cannot allow itself terror state in Lebanon, and the same thing in Syria and Iraq. And everybody that see, not only the tomorrow morning, but 2 days in the future, understand it very well. And one of them, and I want to say it here in your floor, is MBS, the king of Saudi Arabia, that I think understand very well the meaning of strong Iran and the continuation of its expanding in her terror everywhere in the Middle East. It's, as I said in the beginning, it's threat Mecca, not less that it's threat Jerusalem.
You mentioned MBS, the leader of Saudi Arabia. He recently called the elimination of Ismail Haniyeh, quote, a blatant violation of Iran's sovereignty. Given your assessment just now of MBS, what do you make of his message?
I think the MBS, it was a diplomatic statement that Iran is threat our sovereignty every day, not of killing one man. Like if you take this example of Haniyeh, which I'm not sure who killed him, but not of one man. I mean, our soldiers, our people. We have here, the October 7 massacre of 1,500 people. I mean, so it's not a real statement in terms of, somebody hurts the sovereignty of Iran. Iran is hurting the sovereignty of every state in the area. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, daily basis. So I think, if you want the perspective of what's going on in the Middle East, it's not. I think MBS knows very well. I know he knows very well who is actually interfering with the sovereignty of states. I don't think this is the case.
And so based on your conversations with these Abraham Accord countries and your friendliness with them, what, on the surface, as you said, they are denouncing Israel for this, but behind closed doors, give us some insight into what these conversations have been like what is actually going on behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, I think they know that this ideological infrastructure of the Muslim of Brotherhood, of Hassan al-Banna, of Said Qutb, of Tartawi, of Kardawi, all those sheikhs, they know very well that this religious ideological infrastructure threats them. I recommend you and your viewers to hear the speeches of Assisi, yes, the leader of Egypt, the president of Egypt, and again you can see it all over the years. I mean, those regimes, those moderate, let's define them like moderate regime, moderate Islam regimes, actually all over the years they said to the radicals, we can even pay you, but do it somewhere else. Do it in Pakistan, do it in Afghanistan. Leave our regimes. They tried in different ways to take them far away from their area, because they understand very well the danger of this ideological dimension of those organizations. And Assisi had a speech once to the Al-Azhar, which is the important religious institution in the Muslim world, and he told them, look, you are bringing threat to the whole world. You are bringing disaster everywhere. This ideology, I mean, if you keep support the extremists of the radical Islam movements like the Muslim Brotherhoods, you actually become a threat to the whole world. I think it's very clear, Negar, to those regimes, and I think that's why we have a secret cooperation over the years with this regime. And I think one more sentences with your permission. I think that MBS knows that if a Palestinian state will be established, that will be the larger terror basis of the radical Muslims against his regime also in the Middle East. That's why you can see that in the beginning when they talk about let's end the war and let's make some ceasefire and agreement. So in the first place, he didn't talk about Palestinian state. Afterwards, because of American pressures and others, so he added it to his formula. But originally, you asked about the behind the scenes. So behind the scenes, MBS and other Arab leaders actually know very well what are the outcomes, what could be the dangerous outcomes of this process of the Iranian, that led by Iranian regime and other extremists.
And can you elaborate? Earlier, you said you phrased it as secret cooperation. Can you elaborate on that?
I mean, there was between those states that in 2020 we actually signed on those Abraham Accords together in Washington, and that was only the formal relations between us. But even before, we had several cooperation between Israel and those countries. Again, because all sides has common enemies. But more than common enemies, we have also common values. The people that don't deter the Muslim tradition, so they know that there are common values for our monotheist religious. But so that was the basis of many cooperations, especially in the not only but also in the security dimension. And I think it was very fruitful. And Netanyahu's, our prime minister, were in several states, Arab states, secret meetings before those Abraham Accords were signed. And yes, this is it. And again, I think it's the future of our people. It's also the future of the Palestinian people.
What are your thoughts on Yahya Sinwar? Were you surprised that he became the new leader of Hamas? I
think we should not treat all the Hamas issues as a personal issues. It's not a Sinwar issue. I mean, maybe if you have an issue with a movement in the beginning and there is a dominant leader, this is not the status of Hamas today. Hamas today is a big movement who is social, economist, ideological. Actually in Gaza Strip itself, it's not terror organization like people used to say. It's a terror state. I mean, they have all the tools of states' tools. I mean, they have international relations. They have companies in Africa, in Turkey. They have lands or real estate. I mean, in the States. They have billions of dollars in many. I mean, they have all the international tools, all the states' tools. So we don't need to treat Hamas as a personal issue, but as a big movement that we need to put the focus on the infrastructure of this movement, not on personal issues, but the infrastructure.
So looking at the systemic issue, so what would your response then be to some of those experts and pundits that are coming on TV and saying that things are worse now for Israel after the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh and that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is making mistakes? What would your response be to them?
No, I think that I said before, I'm talking about the killing of the Lebanon, of the Hamas, I'm sorry, about the Hezbollah men in Lebanon, and it's also right for the Haniyeh killing. Never mind who did it. I mean, I think Israel reachieved the term of Israel in the area. I mean, the ability of Israel to take care, yes, every one of our enemies in his bed, not in his office, not in his terror headquarters, but in his bed. That's something that I think after the last week, again, I'm tweeting to Lebanon, but anyway, this is something that every terrorist knows today, and I think it says something about Israel and about our abilities, and that's why it has a significant strategic issue here. And more than that, I can tell you that when somebody is killed, so people in Iran, in Lebanon, they are starting fighting between themselves, who cooperated with the Western regimes, who cooperated with Israel. So it has several strategic meaning, and I think that's very important for Israel, and I don't think Netanyahu did a mistake in this point. Again, I think the personal killing of, it's not association, yes, it's a war, but the personal killing of these people should be a constant policy of the Western regimes, of the Western countries, because those people actually took themselves out of the humanity, of the modern civilization. Those are barbarian people. They want to kill every one of us. They want to humiliate our freedom, our identity, our civilization. That's why I think that should be a constant policy, but it's not enough. We need, again, to destroy the infrastructure of those regimes.
And you mentioned off the top that Iran is attacking Israel every day in so many ways, and to a certain extent, at large, the Western civilization as a whole. But have you had private conversations as a Knesset member with the Prime Minister on this supposed imminent attack that's coming from Iran?
It's something that's been discussed in the cabinet. We in the Knesset, we have, we got the reports, and we have our way to criticize and to examine the cabinet decisions. I think that our Prime Minister is well experienced, and he's doing his all the right national considerations that need to be done. And again, I think Israel is more and more in the last weeks. We can see our impact on the area. But yet, I repeat again, if we don't finish this war with a different status of Lebanon, different status of the Gaza Strip, that will not be a victory. It must be clear after October 7 that Israel cannot allow any. It's never mind if it's Hamas, Fatah, Jihad. The names are only covers. The important is the ideologies. The important is the methods. And if you take Fatah or Hamas, it's the same methods, the same goals, and that's why we need to make sure that there will not be any threat, not from Gaza and not from Lebanon, from now on. And this is our work. I'm telling you very honest. Honestly, it takes time. It's not something of tomorrow morning, but this what need to be done, and that's what will be done, I'm sure.
Can you give us a small window potentially into how Israel is prepping for this, or any kind of intelligence that you're able to share in terms of what Israel is learning?
Okay, I think many of the issues are very open for every citizen in the world, that see the facts, see the military abilities around us. I mean, we are building our power. The fact that Hezbollah under the Iranian regime succeeded to take over Lebanon, yes, we need to say it very directly. I mean, there is no really Lebanon today. Lebanon army, it's actually a fiction. I mean, the Lebanon include the Syrian forces, of course, the Iranian forces. Actually, today are. It's not only the percentage of the Shian as part of the whole population in Lebanon. It's also the positions that they have, the power that they have in many, not only in South Lebanon, also in Beirut, also in many other areas. So this process of taking in a terror organization and taking over the whole state, it's impossible. It's impossible. Now, it was in the past, and I just remind you, in 1982, Israel get into Lebanon in order to take off the Arafat terror groups from there and to liberate the Lebanon people, yes, from those terrorists, and of course to enable us to live and not to give this threat to manage our life. And the same thing it's today. Actually, there's no vacuum. Since Israel in 2000 actually took back its forces and let the Shiite forces to conquer Lebanon. So these are the results, and we must repeat again and again, Israel will not allow Lebanon to become a terror state like today. It's over in October 7. All those compromises of Amos Hochstein from the United States are not really cannot bring the solution. It was in 2006. It was 1701 decision of the United Nations. It was nothing, zero, nothing. 3 months, and the Hezbollah forces showed the line to the UN forces, and we became to the starting point again. We cannot allow ourselves. We had more than 1,500 victims. I hope and I think that the Israelis will not get this type of solutions anymore.
Now, how do you think, with this threat of this looming war with Iran and the selection of Yahya Sinwar, how do you think that the hostages must be feeling now?
Look, the hostages are a very hurtful issue because we have first, moral obligation to bring them back home. It's not a question. There is only question how, not what, but how. I mean, and I think, as long as I understand the radical Muslims school of thoughts, that only if we act with very massive pressure and army forces against Sinwar, against the Hamas, that's the only way that he can make what he called hudna. It's not a deal, because there is no deal with those. In their state of mind, in their lexicon, in their dictionaries, there is not word of deal with people like us. They use the hostages as tools just in order to increase the chances that they have victory. But the only way that they have justification to make ceasefire is only if this ceasefire is needed, because otherwise they are losing. I mean, so they need to have this ceasefire for their own interest. So I think that if we keep the pressure like we did lately, but in much more scale, so this is the potential that our hostages also will come home. And I want to remind you and your viewers that in the beginning of this war, when Sinwar thought that what the IDF is doing is actually conquering the Gaza Strip, taking over Gaza Strip step by step. So then he said, I must stop. Take 80 of your hostages, just stop the war. Because there was a feeling that Israel is going, over the whole Gaza Strip. Unfortunately, it has been stopped, and we need to revive it, to return to do those military serious steps in order to bring back the hostages.
Well, thank you so much, Amit Halevi, for joining us today, especially during these very tense times.
Thank you, Negar, for being here, for inviting me.
You can always join in and comment below. The Eye for Iran podcast series is created by Iran International, the go-to destination for expert Iranian news in both Farsi and English. For more, head to our dedicated English website, iranintl.com/en.